Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome to this podcast episode. I've been wanting to create this episode for a couple of weeks now, and I'm going to be really honest. I'm feeling a little bit talked out at the moment. I have recorded 2 1-hour podcast episodes. The previous 2 episodes probably on here, unless I released this one before the one I just recorded today, and I feel talked out. Said a lot of talking. But I wanted to create this episode now because I want to share with you about my 2 mentors that I just completed with. And I think it's actually about 2 weeks now since I completed. So I completed with them within like a week of each other. And the last completion was about 2 weeks ago now. So I don't really want to leave this any longer, because if I leave this for one more week, we're like getting further and further away from it. And I just wanted to share this, just a bit about my process, I guess, of mentorship. It's not something people always talk about a lot, like their own mentorship that they're having and why they make certain decisions or what they get out of it. And, I just finished up a really long-term mentorship with William Whitecloud, which a lot of you guys know about, or have heard me refer to on podcast episodes. Some of you guys know William and have worked with William. A lot of you guys haven't, but I just wanted to share about my decision to complete that, because I was even a bit surprised by it. Like, I wasn't actually really planning to complete that until it came up. So I want to share a bit about that and why I decided to do that and just really what I got out of that. And then I don't take on a lot of different coaches. What I mean to say actually is I'm quite selective about who I'm willing to receive guidance from, because there's so much bullshit out there, and there's just so much like shallow coaching, I would say, where I feel like people don't really get like how the mechanism of your ego works, and so they can have really shallow approaches to that, and sometimes like quite shallow approaches to business, or like fluffy. And so I'm very discerning when it comes to who I am willing to learn from, but also particularly be coached by, and so I did just do a 6-month container with another woman that has just finished. And so I wanted to share a bit about that as well, because I also haven't shared much about that. And it was an interesting experience. I only felt interesting at the very end. The way it ended was really weird, honestly. So I did a post, which if you follow me on social media and you are listening to this around the time it's been released, you might have seen. I did a post just acknowledging the mentorship that I've had with William and what I got from it. And I was actually going to do one with this other woman after our container completed, but the way it ended was so weird to me, that I actually just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I want to share a little bit about that as well, because it was just so weird. Like, to me, that might not be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what happened, and I'm not going to make assumptions or stories about, what anything meant or what was behind it, but I can share with you what happened, because it was kind of odd. So I'm going to start with William. I've just been talking nonstop for 60 minutes. The episode before that, I talked nonstop for like 58 minutes, but then I had a bit of a break. I had lunch and stuff. And it's so funny, because I didn't think those other 2 episodes were going to be that long. I thought this would be like the long episode, but I really don't want to make this too long. I want to be as concise as possible, but hopefully share an experience that's helpful to you, in your experience of having mentorship and maybe like making decisions around that. So let's start with William. So I have been in William's world for a little while. I've been doing personal development, just thinking about the year or my age. I really got into personal development like in a significant way of like doing workshops and a retreat and working on myself in 2013. Um, like I've been into very significant levels of understanding myself, doing work on myself and processes, frameworks, like, yeah, workshops, coaching, since then, like very actively. So I guess that's about 13 years now. And yeah, so I did a lot of work on myself, and at one point I started coaching myself, and I hadn't, like, I think before I started coaching, I had one, I guess, long-term coach, let's say. And then for quite a number of years, like some of you guys are familiar with my story, you'll know that like I quit my coaching business for a while and then I like started coaching again because I just was so connected to coaching. I couldn't stay away from coaching. And when I started my business again, I was just like quite burned by how I went about it last time and the expectations that I had last time. I'm just going to actually I'll take my microphone with me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me get up and walk away. But I'm using my microphone, wireless microphone. So I've just picked up the cup that I've clipped it to and shutting the door because I can actually feel a really nice breeze, but I'm worried that it's going to not be good for the sound for you guys. And actually, it is way quieter in here now that I have shut the door. So I really hope the audio is good for this. But basically once I started my business again, like I had like spent all of my money from that I'd saved up when I quit my job. And so I guess I was just a lot more mindful of what I spent and had felt like I overspent on a lot of stuff previously. So I sort of went into almost like an overcompensation in the other direction, I would say, and really felt like, yeah, I guess I kind of did, like, as much as I was a coach and I helped people with things, like I felt like I should be able to build my business. That's not what I was coaching people on at the time, but like I felt like I should be able to build my business without coaching, or I was maybe just like in a really, just didn't really realize like how valuable that would be, and was sort of in a mindset of like, I'll just wait until, I think a lot of people do this. Like, I'll just wait until I'm earning more money in my business or like a lot of money in my business and then I'll get coaching. Babes, that is completely the wrong way to go about it. Now from where I am, like, I could have just saved myself so much suffering and spinning my wheels and not really going anywhere if I prioritize actually getting a coach, even if that would mean I would need to like work an extra day a week for someone else so that I could provide that for myself to get myself really going in business. But I didn't. I, tried to go about it the hard way and do it all on my own and felt like I should be able to, and I shouldn't spend money on that. Like, man, that would be another podcast episode, I guess. It's just kind of like this concept of like what you should or shouldn't spend money on that just really comes from your family's beliefs about money and what you should and shouldn't spend money on, which comes from a different time. And it's just really unhelpful. It's like, okay, it's irresponsible if I would spend money on this sort of support. I shouldn't need it. Should be able to do everything on my own. Like, really come across that a lot with people. And I was in that for a few years. So I didn't have, I had some one-off coaching a couple of times, fortunately. It was very helpful for me when I did. And then, but I wasn't having like consistent coaching, but I was doing courses and I thought that was going to give me like the resources I need, to get my business going. And also like I've always been quite selective about mentorship. And so I remember, actually, now that I'm saying this, I remember maybe in about 2019 being like, okay, I think I do want to get coaching soon, but I literally don't know who I would want to get coaching from, like who I think could actually help me. And I remember I wrote a list in my like bullet journal at the time of like people who I thought could be good candidates, but I really wasn't sold that I really felt like they could help me. I think actually, now that I'm saying it, I think that was another belief that was really going on for me, is like they're not going to be able to help me. And yeah, so I kind of had this list going. It's so funny. I only remember one person on that list, and I tried to look them up a few years ago and I couldn't find them anywhere. Like they obviously, I think this is a big thing that happened and maybe regularly still happens. They're like these coaches who 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 sort of build their business on this hype and like up their prices, like jack up their prices massively and manage to get like one or two or three or five maybe people in at those prices. And then those, but it's all this whole hype thing of charge your worth and like, I'm going to help you charge premium prices and make heaps of money. And it is kind of like this hot air. And then those people can't suddenly make 100 grand in 6 months. And so they can't continue that coaching. And then more people don't come in. And then the person panics because they'd built their entire brand and purpose for you to want to work with them off, look, I just made 20K this week or 50K and I just had a client pay me this much. So then if you have a month where that doesn't happen, then suddenly you're freaking out because you're like, this isn't working. This is like all hot air and like no one's going to join your things because you sort of like did it all of hot air and there wasn't something real and substantial and you weren't selling people actually based off your real embodied expertise of what you can give them. You were selling them based off you worked out how to get someone to pay you 20 grand for 3 months. And you did it a few times by just telling people that someone paid you 20 grand and then another person, you just made 100 grand. And then, when you're not getting that, you haven't convinced more people to do that, then it all falls apart because you're not just selling what's in you, what's your like embodied skill set. You're selling a result you have got that you don't know how to sustain. I think that's a really bad way to do selling, personally. But anyways, a woman who I had considered went down this route at some point. She wasn't initially, but she went down that route and, was suddenly like, I used to charge $150 a session. Now I charge, I don't know, it would have been like 20 or 30 grand for like 3 months because I know my worth and did the whole fancy photo shoot and stuff. Can't find her anywhere on the internet, which I just thought was interesting. So I didn't get coaching. Because I had these certain blocks around it. I could have come up with the money for it, but I guess I didn't understand like how beneficial that would be for me. And I also just wouldn't have thought that I should. I just wouldn't have thought that's what I should be spending money on. And I just was feeling a bit contracted about money, I guess. And then in 2019, I came across William's work actually through a client who was having sessions with me and finding them so helpful. And I was that actually was the first point where I was, there was things that I really started to notice. And one of the things was like, making peace. You have to make peace with the present first. It's so funny because I guess this ties in so much with what I have as really fully formulated concepts and principles that I share now. But I remember really realizing like, you got to make peace with the present first, to then be in the right energy to like create from and manifest from. And also like, are you creating from a sense of lack or like, is that what's driving you or is it your sense of wholeness that's driving you? And I could really understand like, yeah, this is what like an abundance what abundance energy is creating from that wholeness and not creating from a sense of lack. And so there were these certain things that I had kind of formulated and I would share, be using to help my coaching clients. So I had this coaching client, and a couple of sessions in, he was like, like what you're taking me through and the way you're working with me reminds me so much of William Whitecloud's work. Do you know William Whitecloud? And I was like, no, I don't. And so then he got me one of William's books, because William's been coaching and teaching stuff, I don't know for how long, maybe like 30 years. And then also my friend, I'm going to cut the long story short because I know that I give unnecessary story and I'm seeing how I want to do that right now. But I'm going to, this short story is my friend's housemate was heavily involved, a really good friend of mine that I was actually doing some work partnerships with as well. One of her housemates was coached by William and like one-to-one and like deep in William's work and had worked with him for a long time. And I happened to be in a car with him going down to the hot springs, and somehow it came up, and I think I had read the other book of William's, and I thought it was so good and it nailed things that like I had been trying to articulate. It articulated them, and I was like, fuck, this is it. This is on it. Yes. And so I bought that first book I ran my first mastermind. It must have been sort of around the time I ran my first mastermind. And I bought that book for all of the girls in my mastermind. And because I was just like, this, like, you understanding these principles and applying these principles is going to be so valuable. And this is a really good book that illustrates them. So that was sort of my first interaction. Then the friend's housemate worked with William, and William had just brought out another book, which I guess was more of his framework kind of thing. And so I don't know if that friend lent it to me or I bought it. And so I was using it actually before I then got into his courses. And I remember the guy that was my coaching client that was like, oh, your work reminds me of William's. He sort of, because of that, got back in touch with William, and William was coming back to Australia for the first time in a long time to run a training like that, at the end of that year. And this client was saying to me like, oh, William's coming to do this training. I really think you should come. And at the time I was like, I had reached the point like maybe a year or two before that of like, I was a workshop and personal development junkie. I was like, I have done all the workshops and personal development. I don't need, like, I recognize that it was a dysfunctional thing to just keep going into those environments, like, rather than doing the work in real life. And so I was like, I don't need actually to learn anymore. I just need to apply. And that was true. That was true. But what I didn't know is that coaching is what helps you apply. Yes, I did not need to go to more workshops and trainings, but what I needed then was coaching. Coaching would have helped me so much. And actually, like, William has such a robust framework that, like, in hindsight, I don't think it's wrong that I did it this way, but in hindsight, I absolutely would have benefited so much from going to that workshop. But I was just in this blinker mode of like, no more fucking courses. Like, I just need to apply what I know, apply. And then coming into the next year was 2020, COVID, and I like sort of early on into COVID, this client of mine messaged me and was like, oh, William's running his thing, like this foundational training online actually coming up, and he's doing it for free. I think it was starting like the next day. He's like, do you want to do it? I think you probably really enjoy it. And so I was like, okay, yep, I'll do it. And so I started doing his courses then. And I remember actually after the first course, the foundational course, it was really good. I really it just articulated things so well, captured things that I knew or had learned before so well, and was like really presenting a robust framework for it. And then he was really trying to upsell into his advanced courses after that. And that's when I was like, you know what, I get this. Like, I don't need more courses. I need coaching. So what I decided after that course was I'm going to invest in coaching rather than one of the next courses at this stage. And so I just signed up with one of the coaches. Honestly, I didn't particularly resonate with the coach. Honestly, They kind of irked me a little bit. I didn't even think they were that good. But I was like, if they can coach me in this framework, that's going to be beneficial to me. So I'm just going to do that. So I did that and I worked with them for 4 months. This podcast is talking a bit into like my coaching background of being coached. Although I didn't include earlier things. I've kind of skipped to here. So my very first coach ever was Layla Martin, which if you know Layla Martin, that's kind of hectic, right? So anyways, I had this coaching, and what it gave me was it actually taught me how this framework fundamentally worked in coaching, and like how it was. I'm really glad that I did that, actually, like how this works in real life, how you work it for yourself, and also how you coach someone in it. And so then William kept running this foundational training for free during COVID, and it was completely held up by people doing team leading. So there was lots of people that were doing it. And so I started team leading from the next one, and I started taking on coaching clients. So I was already coaching, but like coaching clients and using the framework after that. And then I decided, like, honestly, I had to overcome a lot of fear in myself because I felt like I had spent so much money on courses and programs and I hadn't made enough of it for myself. I felt so afraid to do more courses and to spend money on myself on more courses. I felt really guilty about it, and like it was just something bad and irresponsible, almost like a drug addict in a way of like, no, I shouldn't do it. And it was actually, so my mum did the next foundational course and was like in my group, and William did his pitch to the upsell of his next course. My mum was like, well, I'm doing it. I was like, well, fuck, like I got to do it if my mum does it. And so that's actually what got me over that resistance. And then I did that. And honestly, it was not like, I think that is a really great course. When I did it, I was like, this isn't what I was trying, like, this hasn't given me enough new stuff really. Like, and I didn't really think it was as amazing as it was sold to be. But I just like, I was just getting so much out of the framework in general that then there was one more in the curriculum. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And that was fucking brilliant. And that one, I got really what I wanted to get, which was really how to work and live, like work the framework. And then there was a mastery course. And so I did that. I was just like all in from then. I was just like, no, this is so fucking good. And I was having coaching clients and I was coaching them in the framework. It was just so good. It just made so many things click. And William's coaching was like a really long waiting list at the time, and also like I didn't have the money. And so it was sort of on my radar as like a maybe one day thing, but he also kept saying at the time his wait list was like a year or 2 years or something. So it was not really, it was not something that was really in my face. And so I did the 4 months of coaching with this other guy who was good, but once I hit that 3 months, I reached my limit with him in that, I had like created some momentum and movement, but I was feeling stuck on something. I couldn't get out of my shit about it, and he couldn't help me out of it. And I was like, okay, so this has run its limit. I'm ending this. And so I wanted to get more coaching though. So I didn't have a coach. I don't know for how long, but it probably was only like a couple of months, maybe a bit more. And then a friend of mine recommended another woman she'd been working with that also used the same frameworks. So I started coaching with her. And again, I just wasn't even like too fussed of like they needed to be a certain level of good coach, but it was just kind of like someone who's going to be good at coaching me in this framework. I don't care how good they are. I just need someone that's going to hold me, in this framework and like to create. And so like with all of these tools and like having some support like that, I managed to get so much moving in my life and like really like I just stopped my business basically during COVID, and I just like picked it up, got it moving again. That's when I started my podcast. I created my next courses and I really just worked it and got things working and got myself in a position where I could move to Bali And so I coached with this woman for, I'm not exactly sure, but I think about 18 months. And I moved to Bali, and then I did, and I also repeated every single one of William's trainings once a year. So he had 4. Okay, the foundational one doesn't count because I did that a lot because I was team leading it. But then in terms of the advanced ones that I was paying for, I paid to repeat them once a year because like I knew the content, but every time things would land deeper, things would land that I didn't hear even the time before, because now I was further along in my own process of mastery and applying it. I could get it. And also for a transformational course, you go through a transformation every time you do it, as well as like you receiving the information of the content. And so I just found it so valuable to repeat them. I was getting so much from it. So I was having this coaching with this other coach, and then I was repeating each course with William once a year. I moved to Bali, and then all of a sudden I could just see I can figure out how to pay for a year of coaching with William. Like I can. And at the end of that one, he was like, I've got, like my wait list has cleared out a lot now with coaching. And so I've got space for coaching clients, or maybe soon. So if you're interested, get in touch. And I was just like, yep. I just suddenly clicked. Because also prior to that, I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to do one-to-one coaching with William. Because it was like really expensive. Prior to that, also, I was like, I don't think I'm at a stage where I can fully utilize it. And also, yeah, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to. And then that moment, I was like, yes, I want to. And I now feel like that I can figure it out. I don't have all that money in my bank account, and I'm not earning enough that would cover it monthly, but I can see that I can work it. I can make it happen. I can figure it out. I can pull it together somehow. And I can see like some money that I can pull together, or that I've already got in my bank account, and I can just see ways that I could get the rest together. So I went for it, and I started with him then. And one of the things that helped fund it was that I sold my car very magically, got a really good price for it, because I moved to Bali, and I'd already been in Bali for a few months. And I came back to Australia. I was like, I'm not going to have like a good car just sitting there. Like I'm not, I'm not going to be coming back. And that put money towards some of it. I think, yeah, it was basically like in Australian dollars, it was a lot more expensive to pay monthly. So I was really motivated. It was like an extra 10 grand total to pay monthly. So I was very motivated to pay upfront, and it was about 38 Australian dollars per 38,000 Australian dollars per year coaching. So that kicked off my coaching with Will, and I was in such an upswing at the time, like really got momentum going. And I just realized, like, I just need a coach. Like, fuck, you just can't see your whole way around yourself. And I was just getting so much from it in so many ways. And immediately, like, William's coaching was immediately like 20 levels up from the last coaching I was just having. I don't mean any disrespect to that coach. I think they're a great coach, but like his level of intuition, how deep he would go, how he would see exactly what was going on for me and call it out. I honestly don't feel like the other coach really often didn't feel on it to me. Like, and this was on it. And because what I've always noticed for me when I've learned things, people have coached me or taken me through processes, I receive the transmission of it, and I can then do that thing like for people and with people. And so my coaching immediately, because of the depth he would go to immediately with me in terms of seeing and naming what was going on as like my egoic dynamics that were happening. Like he could just get so deep and clear of exactly like my conditioning, what I was doing, why I was doing it, where it came from. I just immediately could do that in my sessions. And my sessions just went fucking way next level immediately. So like it gave me this transmission of how to so deeply access my intuition and wisdom. And it gave, and through that, and through him coaching me, just such a deeper understanding of the work we were doing and of consciousness and vibration and energy and like what those things even actually mean and what the experience is like, and just understanding consciousness, like human psychology, behavior, these different aspects of ourselves, like the ego, the way your ego is orientated and driven, your subconscious, your higher self, like all of it. Just like I just continued to get it and understand it and see it more and more and more, because I was working with this fucking genius that could just transmit that to me. And so, so it really like unlocked and amplified my abilities like 100-fold of like my abilities to do the same thing with people, as well as what I was learning about myself and coming to understand about myself. So it was, yeah, so profound. And there's so many things William would see and say to me that I couldn't see at the time, but I would just keep being with. And then eventually it would land like 6 months later, a year later, I would then like see it and see it so clearly, like things in my greatness and or my genius, and also things in my, my ego. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. Like, oh my God, it's been incredible. Like I'm so great. I've never had a mentor like that before. That was my first and only like really true mentor. When you think of a mentor who has just like blown your world and your eyes and your abilities open and shown you things no one else has ever shown you, and like passed on a transmission of teachings, like this treasure to you, to then that you then pass on to others. I've never experienced anything like it. Like I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that William did that and has done that, and like gives people like me that time of day. Like I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in the access of my genius that I'm in. I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't have the work that I've formulated. I wouldn't be able to help people. Like I really, look, I'm not saying this to be arrogant. Like I'm just saying it to be honest. I really blow my coaching clients' minds a lot. And I absolutely have, I mean, I was always a good coach even before I learned William's frameworks, but like, fuck. I am honestly like ninja level because it's in my natural abilities. And then I've had this mentor, and having the one-to-one coaching for him, like has just catapulted me and my abilities just, and I cannot express enough in words, like what it's given me, what I've got, like how much it helped me just see also just, yeah, the ways I've held myself back and my unconscious sense of myself. And it's a really an interesting thing to get to really feel and understand your unconscious sense of yourself, because you're so in it. It's how you've always felt that that it really takes something to be able to like peel it back and see it, because it's just how you always feel. It's just like, so it's a really interesting thing when you start like getting awareness of that, which was something that had happened to me before even getting into William's work, where I remember in Melbourne, like in 2019, realizing that I felt like this unworthy sort of feeling all the time. And I just never noticed because what I always felt. But anyways, like so much, but I just got so much out of it. And as a coaching client, I did all of his trainings at least once a year, continued, and got so much out of them every time. And like sometimes people with my programs, like, oh, they're like, oh, I've done it. I'm like, yeah, but like doing it again is not a pointless thing. It's like, if you've been applying that work, like you will be able to receive the next level of those teachings the next time you do it, that you could only receive after you have tried applying it yourself for a certain amount of time, found all the pitfalls, or like where, because when you first do a training of a transformational nature, you're all high off it. Everything seems so simple and easy. And you're like, oh yeah, I just do this and bang, like everything I ever desire is going to work out for me. And then you apply it and you realize that absolutely does not happen. And, and so then you have to discover like so much deeper about all those mechanisms. And so when you revisit it and when it is structured as a transformational training, like you get like an elevation of your consciousness through it. Like it really highlights everywhere you've been in your, limited and conditioned self, and then transports you into your higher awareness and like higher, identity of who you really are. So you get that benefit as well as deepening into the teachings. And so I don't even fucking know how many times I've done all those trainings. When I hear people be like, oh yeah, I've done that before. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen that often, but people being like, yeah, maybe. I'm like, if this resonates with you, do not do it only once. Do not do a training only once. Like if this resonates with you as a path in life and a way of operating in life, do not fucking only do it once. God damn. You're going to fall off the band. You're going to get derailed by something and then you're going to forget about it. And I've seen this happen with so many people. I've seen this happen with so many people in William's work. I've seen this happen with people in my work. It's like if you don't keep yourself in a structure to keep training you in this, you will get railroaded at some point, sideswiped, fall off the bandwagon, and then it's gone. You don't come back to it, or you don't know how to, because you don't know how to deal with that thing, because you didn't go into a structure that then helps you learn how to deal with that thing that derailed you. So fuck, like I just cannot. I cannot like be a proponent enough for coaching if you want a life outside of like a default cultural script, like, or outside of what your ego built as like your safety zone. If you want a life outside of that, like, yeah, and you want to unlock something just so much deeper and more substantial in you, that's your true gift and like thing to share with the world, and then, like be able to break through all of the limitation about visibility and being authentic and allowing yourself to be seen in that, and what people are going to think, and like what people are going to think if you actually are successful. Like you just gotta have coaching. You just gotta. So I realize we're already getting a fair way in. I'm like, just giving you the background still. Typical Alex. But anyways, I had an epic time. And, and his work got me so far. So there was a couple of things. One thing drilled into me by William was you don't need any other work other than this work. And honestly, I see his reasoning behind it. He's like, don't try to patch things together because it doesn't work. You got to find one system that you resonate with and that works for you, and you work that system. You can't take this from that system and then this from this system and then this from this system, because that's not a cohesive system that covers all bases and like works together. And I think that's really true. However, it did sort of stop me from taking full responsibility for uncovering how to really unlock my energy. So the work with William like got me so far. And once I started coaching with William, honestly, like if you saw my post on this, like I was in this massive upswing, things going super well, and I hit a contraction, which was absolutely like a success block, like limitation of like, you can't go past here. You're wrong. You're bad. It's not real. It's not going to last. Everyone's going to hate you. Like I didn't consciously think any of those things, but I can now see that that's what was happening. And I just went into like so much fear and thinking things were happening that weren't happening, which then made me behave in a way that created what I feared. Like I was not, until I was like in fear and paralysis about it, like none of that was happening. None of it needed to happen. And what I found was, and so I was applying the work. I was obviously coaching with William. He's a brilliant coach, getting a lot of insight into myself, but I actually wasn't fully unlocking myself. Like I might get a bit like after a session feel like cracked open and unlocked, or like, I did do processes on myself. I'm like dedicated. I'm actually one of those seriously dedicated people. But I kept finding myself predominantly like in a contraction and feeling fear that like, like this just, well, I could unpack that another time. That's would be a whole podcast episode. Um, and I wasn't breaking through that. And so I was like pushing myself to take action, keep going, try to stay focused on what I was creating. But the truth is, that's not where my focus was. My focus was on all my fear and my sense of incompleteness. And so then that's gradually what was, predominantly in my field. And so then I started experiencing contraction, in my life and business as well as a result of that. And so I was really like trying to tackle this. And okay, this will go on forever if I really give like all the detail, but if I'm just kind of get a bit more macro. So like I did, and I remember like using my sex magic practices at one point and that helping like really break through a fear thing I was in at one point because I did my emotional alchemy through that because I did a lot of tantra and sacred sexuality, which is also an alchemy system. Tantra is, as well. Alchemy being from lower nature to higher nature, from your survival orientation to your higher nature. From your ego to your divine nature. So alchemy is tantra is also an alchemy system, and but I just like I experienced so much benefit from that, but I think I just didn't really fully receive it and take it in to take forward because I was really in this mode of like, no, don't need anything else other than, these things. And William kind of really almost like invalidates other approaches or, just anything other than strictly like what he has given you as processes. So I didn't notice that at the time. I noticed that last year. And what I noticed was like, okay, what I'm doing is not working. Like I'm trying to, I'm consistently taking action and moving ahead, but from contraction, actually, from my energy being shut down and actually in a low level state of fear and contraction that I'm not going to be okay and no one's going to want my things and like it's not going to work out. My life's not going to work out. I'm going to end up on the street. And, and that underlying thing wasn't shifting. And so there was this moment in early last year where I really just took on my own authority. And I was like, okay, if I just like put all of this aside, what do I know about consciousness? What do I know about consciousness? If you're not doing something like you want to be doing, what mechanism wise in your consciousness is going on? And like, if we create it all, like I use all the principles that I learned from William. We create it all. So if I'm creating this, that's because a part of me wants to be creating this. I just really went back to I just stripped back everything and was like, okay, what do I know to be true? And it really took me to like this emotional aspect, and this feeling aspect and just like applying what I knew about the principles in a way I had never been taught to apply it, essentially. And so I did that, and I fully unlocked the contraction I'd been in for like 18 months, and my energy was red hot and flowing. And like, it's not just, like, because before, like, yeah, I could get out of my funk, but it was the predominant like vibration I sort of was sitting in, and I couldn't seem to crack it. And I cracked it with my own process. And I was like, okay, and this makes, based on all the principles I know, this makes 100% sense to me. I just never had processes to really fully properly address this aspect. And so I was like, every time I get triggered or contracted, I'm going to apply this. I'm going to apply this process. And like what I know, and like, cause this moved it for me. This did the alchemy for me, was when I went into the emotional elements. And, and then there's different ways you can use your body and sensation to support that alchemy. But like the way that I just created my own way to come at it, which I feel like is what women specifically really need. Men absolutely could really benefit from it. And maybe a lot of men really need it too, or men with quite strong feminine energy or emotional body would really benefit from it. But it enabled me to actually alchemize the things that I went through cognitively with William, but just weren't actually shifting on a vibrational level within me. I cracked a way to actually make that an embodied, alchemized experience so that I was then not having ever to try to just push myself to, promote something, put something out there, create my next thing when I was really dying with shame and contraction inside. I learned so much. And so I really learned I really came into my own authority last year. And with all the coaching sessions I had with Will, every session I was never needing it. I was almost wishing it was further ahead because I felt like I was just achieving and doing so much and so on fire, between every session. And I also think it's really positive in coaching that you're not doing it because you feel like you need to. It's going to fix you or it's going to solve something. So I never felt like that was a problem. I wasn't like, oh, I don't need the coaching now, because that's not why I did coaching. I was always like, this can always reveal to me another level of my vision, of my truth, of my true nature, of what my real unique essence is, my unique, thing in my work. And it did. So, I was happy to have the sessions, but I never felt like I needed a session, which I honestly made me feel like I have gotten to the best place for coaching. Because if I'm not trying to resolve I'm not feeling like I need someone to help me resolve anything, I'm in a fucking power position. So I was by no means thinking that would mean that I might finish coaching soon. I just was like, that was where I was at with it. And then after my book launch, I went, I've had an integration period and it as is natural and appropriate and structural to how your consciousness works, it stirred up a lot for my ego. And it was really it was a bit challenging coming back to Bali and not having a place to live and just just really needing to recoup my energy. And then the fear that was coming up for me about taking rest and recouping my energy and, going through a bit of a autumn, winter and just receiving, letting the next thing come through. That was uncomfortable for me and stirred up stuff for me. And, it was really interesting because I sort of reached a point that I didn't feel like I'd been for at least a year, where I was looking forward to my coaching sessions. And I was for the first time in so long, literally a year, I was feeling like, I don't know what's next. I'm not clear on my direction. And it's, it felt like there's no, I didn't think that I would be completing coaching, to be honest. I was just, and I was feeling challenged again in a way I hadn't for quite a long time, because I had just been, I'd just been so focused and clear and clearing everything that was coming up. And now, I was entering a different phase of the creative cycle and I was a bit okay. And, and then the thing that can happen for me is freaking out that I'm freaking out. I'm like, am I contracted? Am I spiraling? And then am I going to lose control of that? That sort of came up for me again, which hadn't for a really long time. And I, was having my sessions with William and this other coach, and it just wasn't, I could start to feel, okay, I'm starting to have that underlying predominant vibration again, even though I don't feel so in it or so identified with it. I could feel like it's going on, and it is a thing that I now need to address, and because it's not just sort of breaking. And now is time where I need, I do feel like I need to receive the next thing and move forward. And I think that I'm in right now, I think that I've actually reached the point where I am stalling that. And I'm not just in the period of integration and receiving I need. And it wasn't cracking with my sessions with William. And so I was like, okay, Alex, take responsibility. Let's go back to my own process. And I also, moving into my house, I was easy to be distracted by all the things I was doing and it's just not time for that yet. So, but it was once I identified, hey, this is what's going on and I'm avoiding it, that I sat myself down again to do basically like one of the processes that I developed over the past year that I was using all through last year. Every time I got triggered and every time it would unlock my energy again, because my energy would shut down through the contraction. And this was something that would actually not be a way to force myself to keep moving forward, but actually feeling contracted, but actually open up my energy and get turned on. And that was, really the turned on thing really landed for me because I could feel it viscerally in my body. If my body was shut down and turned off, my energy was shut down, or if it was turned on and I was turned on. And so, so then I was like, okay, Alex, it's time for a feeling practice. Like, fuck this rest of this shit. You got something to face. You haven't been facing it. Let's go in and do it. And I just did one feeling practice myself, and it completely unlocked that contraction that I, finally realized, yeah, I am in a contraction. And it was just this thing again of like, yeah, William's like work has given me so much in terms of understanding and awareness, and his processes have gotten me so far. And his coaching, gives me a certain level of awareness, but nothing in his work works like this to actually like unlock my energy when like a fundamental contraction has started coming in. Nothing. Like, and like this, like I need to do this to always be living and operating on my highest vibration. Like this is what works for me. Like what the processes I've created fucking work, and they work right away. So that was, one thing I guess I noticed is like I just need to make sure that I just keep leaning into my own wisdom and that I deal with all my stuff that comes up. And so then my coaching with William was coming up. So I've coached with William 1-to-1 for 3.5 years. The reason is so I would sign up for a year at a time. But because William goes on safari, and I did the first 2 safaris during my coaching with him, because he does the safaris every year, there's then like a month and a half that we don't coach. And so then those sessions get put on the end, which is kind of why it turned into 3.5 years. Although I signed up for 3 years. Something else I wanted to actually mention on this, because I think it's helpful to just share, is that I have never like fully funded my coaching with William from my business. So the first year of coaching that I did with him, I think must have been partly money I had saved from what I got from my business, and then the like 20 grand from selling my car. And then the next 2 terms were both like I didn't have the money up front. Like, and so I say this, obviously I have a great lifestyle, and like in the first year that I coached with him, I took a trip that I don't know, but I might have spent 25 grand on that trip. And like, and there's things that I invest in and stuff. And so like, it's not that I, like you could look at like where you draw money from, right? And shuffle money. But just to be really honest, like each time I have signed up for another year of coaching with William, I have resourced at least part of that money from elsewhere. It has not like just all come from my business. And I want to say that because, and I've been motivated to do them up front, but whatever, that's irrelevant to my point actually. I say that because what I see a lot of people being in the mindset of, and I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe it comes from a cultural condition. I think it just comes from not believing in yourself and feeling like you're doing something wrong and outrageous, and you need it to have made the money back immediately in order for it to be okay that you made that investment. But what I see a lot of people thinking is like, I'll only spend money on coaching that my business makes. I'll only put in if my business has generated it. And I don't know why the fuck people do that. Like I guess I used to do that too. So like, I'm not shaming it, but I just really want to draw attention to that's like, I think that's a really unhelpful mindset, you know, and that's actually something I've deeply come to appreciate from this other coach that I've just had the funky ending with, that I think I'm just going to have to do another podcast episode. If I do one on that, maybe I'll just sort of wrap up this William one now because it's been another hour. Need to not talk for a while after this. Um, uh, da-da-da. Yeah. So this other coach has helped me really appreciate, like, if you are just really like, if you like assume that you're a powerful person and like you just you like everything's working for you, everything's going to work out for you, everything's coming together, and you don't have any demands on timelines or demands on immediate ROI because you need proof. That's the only reason you have those demands, is because you feel like you need proof because you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in what you have to offer, and so you need the thing to incrementally, piece by piece, prove itself, in order for you to feel validated following that path. And it's like, only if it makes me money, only if it makes me this much money, will I like continue with this thing, or will I go for it? Like, it's really like a demanding, entitled relationship people have with their businesses and starting their businesses. And I totally used to too. And it held me back for so long and made me so stuck and stagnant. So I guess I'm saying it's not like, you know, like I have a great lifestyle, but the money that I have paid for my coaching with William, by far and away majority of it, I have resourced from elsewhere. Like I have supported myself to have that mentorship. I have just made it happen. I have just figured out ways because I knew that this is just so deeply valuable to me, and not just for what, you know, it can give me back financially immediately. Like I just know, like if I put this into myself, like what I'm learning from this, what this has unlocked about my genius, you know, like what this enables me to live and create is like, you know, is just so valuable. And if I truly like believe in that and I live committed to my true nature and purpose, this mentorship has been a fucking no-brainer, and I have resourced it from elsewhere. And so I just really wanted to share that because I noticed, just this unwillingness to resource investing in yourself. And it's like this attitude of like, oh, well, if my business doesn't pay for it, I'm not going to invest in myself. Like, what? Like that's not how you're going to, like, it's like I was saying sort of at the beginning of this episode with my own mentality earlier. It's like, that's the wrong way round. You'd be better off investing in a coach for 3 years, 5 years, however many years, to get yourself really going. And then you might not need coaching, you know, for a bit, but like in those earlier stages and as you're developing yourself and you're unlocking, it's just a no-brainer. And it's like living committed. If you like fully live committed to living your true nature and purpose, you'll do what's obvious and true. Like, well, you should, otherwise you're not committed to it. Like what's obvious and true to support you on that path. And it is just so clear to me through all of this, like this was a no-brainer decision that of like being committed to that path. And like, you know, and if I truly believe, like, which I do, I mean, you also don't have to believe premises and principles, but if I truly like subscribe to the principle that we create it all and, you know, and that this is my true nature and purpose, like it's all going to come back around. And I mean, like as I said, like I do make obviously more than that in my business, per year, but I actually don't resource that. I haven't so far, like I could in the future resource that from my business. And I didn't think that I would be ending with coaching with William initially yet. And honestly, it felt like a very vulnerable time to be ending it because I really just made that breakthrough for myself. But, you know, I hadn't really started my output again yet. And I just felt, like I thought that I was just going to I absolutely thought I was going to do another year, until it came up and William was like, okay, so your coaching's up. Do you want to continue for another 12 months? And on that exact day that he brought it up with me, I was just feeling so just fucked up about everything and like, that I was like, he's like, okay, let's just, you just sit with it after this and we'll talk about it next time. And so I did. And during that time, that's when I like, actually, I think that was maybe that's when I just did another one of my processes on myself. But I was like, okay. And I got really clear and I could just feel the truth of like, no, this is a moment for me to complete with William. Like for now, I don't know if I will coach with William again, but I absolutely would. And like, I could make that decision in 3 months from now. Like, I do not feel like, oh, like it's done. I'm absolutely sure I will be involved with William in some ways again in the future. And I could start coaching with him again at any moment. Or I might not coach with him again. I don't know. But once I was out of my shit, and it did still feel kind of like this vulnerable moment of like, okay, I'm stepping into the next things in my business, which is fully fucking owning my work and like my wisdom and what like what's come through me in this past year and formulating that and standing in that and owning that. And like, that's what I work myself, because like I've been coaching for a long time now and I work with, clients consistently over long periods. And so it's like I really developed this work that I use with them. That's the things that work for them that I use on myself. That's the things that work for me. I've got my mastermind and like, so I am constantly seeing what works with people because I'm constantly working with people and over long periods of time. All my one-to-one coaching clients, I work with over multiple years. And so, like I see what actually like unlocks them in their life. And so I could just feel like this is a moment, so it just felt true to complete. And then if I'm going to say like, oh, maybe this is why, like it just felt like this is a moment for me to like absolutely step into my own authority in the world. And I just feel like I just need to own that and I just need to take that step. And that's, like that's my truth. It's all specifically in regards to William anyway, and the mentorship I've had from him. William is also a very different coach from me. He's a brilliant coach. He's genius. He is like coaching with William is like, I go off and live my life and do the things I'm doing and go out there and be a badass creator. And William doesn't really know about 90% of what I'm getting up to, what the fuck I'm doing. He doesn't know what any of my offers are. Doesn't know really anything about my business. Doesn't see or engage with, I don't think he even sees any of my social media. I coach very differently. And so like what William is like a show up to sessions and he intuitively tunes in basically on my true nature and purpose, my visions, what's my genius, not specifically how it looks or plays out or anything or what I should do next. And then my identity, my ego, and just like says what he gets intuitively is at play in those things amongst all those things. Or if I'm having a real like meltdown about something, he might just like really coach me on that thing. But he's not like that. That's what I get from him. And I don't get like that he doesn't see the work that I'm doing in the world. And he doesn't, there's so many benefits I've gotten from his style of coaching and I've learned as I've already said this, it's like made me a better coach in more ways than I can just even describe. But yeah, I just feel like of me stepping into this next level of my power and authority, this just feels like my true next step with it, basically. And when I made the decision, I was really like, wow, am I really going to do that when I know that I've just been in a wobble and I'm about to step into what feels so fucking ballsy and I'm going to like say goodbye to my coach, like my support system for the past 3.5 years. And I was like, yeah, I am, because I just get that this is what to do next. But I just I wanted to share that and emphasize that because, and just this process that I've been on so that you can just understand or maybe receive from me just like the power of mentorship and the power of and just committing to yourself, doing what it takes to give yourself what you need. And that you don't limit yourself with this thing of your business has to pay for it. It needs to have an immediate ROI, because otherwise what? You're panicking because you don't actually think you're powerful. If you know that you're powerful, you don't need to place conditions. All of those things are conditions. And if you're going to live like that, you're going to experience things being really hard and not really working out for you and being really slow, because you've got all these conditions about where things need to come from, how they need to be, when you're allowed to do what. And just take all of those conditions off and be like, what's going to support me? If this is what I really want, this business, this level of business, this level of letting myself, my voice, my authority out in the world, why the fuck would you have a condition on what needs to be proven before you can invest in the support that's going to get you there? Why? So I just wanted to share that with you. And I'm going to wrap up that episode here. So we didn't get to the second one. Maybe the second one just doesn't even need to be spoken about. There's things I got from that mentor. Anyway, I'm going to leave this one here. These episodes have gotten longer and longer throughout the day as the day has gone on. I hope you got something from it. And yeah, it's just giving you some things to consider in your own growth and mentorship that you engage in that growth, because the most important thing that I want to support you to do, and I hope that this episode has supported you in that, is to choose who you really are in the world and what you're really meant for, and to just fucking choose it, and to not place conditions on it, not not make yourself suffer and stay small and limited and think you have to do it all yourself, and just give yourself just choose that you're the one. You're here with something special to share, and you're the one, and you get to have the best life. You get to have the life that is literally your dream, because whatever is authentically your dream, not your ego's dream, but your authentic dream is meant for you, and you can have it, and you get to have it. And if you're here listening and you're still here after 67 minutes listening, I know something about you, and that's you have a treasure to share with the world. And I want you to share that. And so I just hope this episode has been supportive in that process of you just choosing that you matter, and what you share, what you have to share matters, and it is important, and it is worth investing in whatever level, going for it, your time, your resources, and choosing it fully, because you have to choose it. And getting mentorship is a part of that process of you choosing, yeah, I do have something, and there is a life I want to live, and I choose that I get to have it. And I'm going to do whatever is obvious steps that will get me there. Because that's all you have to do is what is obviously going to, if that is what I'm really choosing, what would I choose? What would I do? What are my obvious steps in choosing that? So I'm going to leave you with that from this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. I would love to hear if you did. Please send me a message. And if you feel like there's anyone in your life that would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And I'm sending you so much love, and I will see you in the next one.